Ok, pues voy a volver a empezar a grabar cosas y a subirlas. Al menos un vídeo al día. Un vídeo al día. Por la mañana cuando despierte, pues estaré una horita jugando algo. Lo subiré en tal caso. O no. ¡Ah! Me he pinchado. O no. Y pues voy a pillar el Stardew Valley, no. El Stanley Parable. Que lo pillo gratis por la Epic Store. Y pues se mira poquito este juego. Me suena haber visto un vídeo del Rubius, pero apenas me acuerdo del juego. O sea, sé de qué iba y tal. Dentist, never dentist. Loading. Oh, wow. Sutil. ¿Se ha movido o está quieto esto? ¿Tanto tarda? Joder. Ah, vale. Uy, qué raro que tarde tanto, la verdad, ¿eh? O sea, que yo sepa, no es un juego tan grande, se me descargó en nada. Que me tarda menos el GTA, hijo de puta. Vamos.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Vale. Traduzco un poquito así por encima. De hecho, voy a mirar si hay subtítulos. Campo de visión. ¿Nani? Me gusta más así. Avanzado. Meta de efecto, joder, coño, alto. Tío, ya que puedo. Más texturas, alta. Perdón por esto. Me niego a editar este vídeo. Se me acaba de salir. Vale, he vuelto. Voy a ver si hay algo. Audio. De bocinas. Dos bocinas. Subtítulos, sí, aquí. Ah, aquí, vale. Traduzco un poquito. Vaya. Bueno, pues cosas del directo, supongo, ¿vale? Como he dicho antes, me niego. Bienvenido de nuevo. Toma, otro logro. Oh, aquí están todos los logros. Imposible, este logro no se puede conseguir. Ya sé qué logro es este. Ahora va más rápido.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Ya lo dejo así no tengo que traducir nada.
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Vale, ya puedo volver a empezar a hablar. Resumen rápido, que el chaval este pues estaba súper feliz haciendo sus cositas, tal. De repente un día la peña desaparece, ¿vale? El movimiento de esto. Súper incómodo, bueno. Y básicamente tenemos que... Según me... ¿Esa es la hora que hace ahora mismo? Oh, no, es la hora de ahora. Ah, no, está mal hecha. Pringaos. Oh, no, no me deja entrar ahora, le salió. Ah, aquí estoy, de vuelta. Vale, pues el tío ha dicho, como ves ahí abajo, y salió de su no sé qué, ¿vale? De su despacho. Ahora yo salgo y...
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
La meeting room. La meeting room. ¿Cuál es esa? No hay nadie, ¿eh? Uy, bonita hoja. Espera, ¿esto está conectado en los cascos? Abarcadísimo. ¿Esto es la meeting room? No.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Claro, ahí me dice, entró en la de la izquierda. Yo ahora, pues, supongo que el juego tendrá muchas variantes de, por ejemplo, no hacer ni puto caso a este tío. Y ya. De no hacer ni puto caso a este tío. Oye, si no recuerdo mal, aquí no había un vacío, rollo que esto no es una ventana que va a la calle. Si no recuerdo mal, aquí había una habitación. Bueno, da igual, una habitación. Y ahora, por ejemplo, el tío dice, y giro a la izquierda. Así que yo ahora voy para la izquierda. Hello there. Tengo que ir aquí. ¿Puedo entrar a alguna otra? No.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Vale. Cuando entiendas inglés lo entenderás. Obviamente. Broom closet. Hostia, se abre.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Dice, entró, vio que no había nada y se dio la vuelta. Y de verdad no había nada.
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
¿Estás seguro? Me encanta porque, aunque pulse el clic, suena una especie de tecleo en el juego. ¿Se escucha? Uy, vaya, he hecho eso. Ya escucha. No sé si se oye bien, pero... Vale, pues.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his
Me
boss's
dice,
office.
walk upstairs. Pues walk upstairs. O sea, para arriba. ¿Aquí? No. Quiero ir al baño ejecutivo. No puedo. No puedo pasar. Quiero ver lo que hay ahí. No puedo. Bueno. ¿Vas aquí?
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. and so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845.
¿Dónde?
But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Disculpe usted. O sea, me acaba de decir. No sabía Stanley que había que aquí había una cosa. Y tampoco sabía que el número era 2.
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
Claro, yo no sabía que esta era la combinación.
Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Dice, Stanley no se le habría ocurrido en ningún momento que el número podría ser 2845. Y pulsando aleatoriamente 4 números, resultó que era estos. Jope, Stanley. Ese es el icono del juego. ¿Qué es lo que pone? I am the most expensive boss. Seguaje Lilies by Caldemoni. El Mont Blanc, por ejemplo. Así es. Con el sonido de fondo. Aquí me está diciendo que me acerque y... ¡No, por favor! Dios mío. Oh, cargando. ¿Qué coño es este juego, tío? No lo recordaba así. Yo sabía que era como que tenías que seguir lo que decía el tío. Pero,
Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Dios mío. No sé cuándo está el Stardew, para verlo, como se diga. Es un juego de terror.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Instalaciones de control mental. Escape.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Pues hora de
But
volver.
of course, Stanley thought better of it and realized he simply had too much to lose.
Ojalá poder leer lo que pone, tío. Son números. Me están llamando por el móvil. Me cago en mi puta madre, de verdad. Pues nada, toma por culo. ¿Me puedo darle la luz a esto? No, bueno, pues. Pues os esperáis. Discúlpenme las molestias. Ay. Disculpa las molestias. Vale, no sé si ha ocurrido algo mientras estaba por aquí, pero mi padre necesitaba mi ayuda y ya le he ayudado. Oh, wow, aquí hay un botón muy grande. Voy a pulsarlo.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Lo puse otra vez. No puedo, vale. Ok. Cámaras. Employee Observation Protocol. Employee. Voy a pulsar aquí.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Wow, eso está un poco raro desde ahí, ¿eh? Oh. Esos ahí puestos a... ¿Cuál era yo, tío? Bueno, da igual. Tal y como veo, tendré una caja aquí, por ejemplo. Tendré que pulsar este botón.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
Oh, no. Esto es muy capitalista.
No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
No puedo apagarlo. Se puede pulsar este botón y este. Pero no puedo pulsar este. Bueno. Estos. Bastante crítica constructiva esto, la verdad. No puedo pulsar este botón, tío. No comprendo. Tengo muchos botones, pero los pulso y no pasa nada. ¿Eso qué es? Nah, puedo pasar por debajo. Pues tendré que ir aquí, supongo. 5. Por el culo tela. Wow. Qué parra.
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
Y lo apagué.
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
¿Cómo que open door? Esto no es un open door, esto es el...
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Wow. O sea, el resumen del juego... Oh, he vuelto aquí. Claro, la vuelta a empezar el juego. Claro, y el resumen del juego es que... Oh, no, he descubierto que bla, 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 bla. Y nada, aquí estoy de nuevo. ¿Sabes? Me ha avanzado el reloj. Pues voy a seguir jugando un poquito, ¿vale?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Voy a probar cosas
Stanley
diferentes.
decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Por aquí, por cojones, tengo que ir.
When Stanley came to a set of two open
a la
doors,
derecha.
he entered. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Oh, sí. Es como, en algún momento me asomaré y habrá un screamer que flipa, ¿sabes?
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
Ajá. Esta habitación no está bien hecha, la verdad. O sea, esto de aquí no tiene ningún sentido.
Yes, really, really worth it being here in the room. A room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings.
Sí.
Really worth it.
Sí. Es que mi problema es esto, o sea... Está muy mal hecha esta. Aparte que las luces de arriba son una
At this
mierda.
point, Stanley's obsession with this room bordered on creepy and reflected poorly on his overall personality. It's possible that this is why everyone left.
O sea, que dice que todo el mundo se ha ido porque yo estoy obsesionado con esta habitación. Pero me refiero... Está mal hecha esta habitación, o sea...
Stanley sat around waiting for more dialogue. But when a long time had passed and there was no more, he decided that the game was trying to send him a message.
Ah, que el juego me está transmitiendo un mensaje de ir por ahí. Ah, vaya, con que juegas con la cuarta pared. Pero en fin, no me gusta nada esta habitación, o sea, que le han hecho mala posta. O sea, mírala, por favor, es terrible. Yikes. Bueno, no me está diciendo nada. De hecho, he dicho ahí que está esperando por diálogo. Supongo que tendré que irme ya.
But at last, he'd had enough of the amazing room and took the first open door on his left to get back to business.
Ya la echo de menos. Para volver al business. ¿Ha dicho que era por ahí? Ah, yo voy por aquí.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired yet.
Vale, no era por aquí. Do not lie. If you are lying, right now, stop. Wow. O sea, no mientas, si estás mintiendo ahora mismo, para. ¿Puedo pasar aquí? Oh, no, una tarjeta. No me queda otra que subirme aquí arriba. Do not jump from the cargo lift while it's in motion. Will cause death. Oh no!
But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
Yikes. No me esperaba eso, lo siento. No me esperaba en absoluto
When
eso.
Stanley came to a set of two open, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Que sí.
Wow. Yes, this room. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
No.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Penalty for jumping. 5.000. Joder.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her.
For her? ¿Cómo que for her?
This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life.
What the fuck?
She's been waiting.
What the fuck me estás diciendo? A ver, vale. A ver, técnicamente el tío que nos está hablando, ¿vale? Técnicamente es bueno, ¿no? Porque antes le hemos hecho caso en todo. Hemos descubierto que estábamos en una mierda de simulacro, ¿vale? Estamos en Matrix, ¿vale? Y dice, oye, mira, ahora puedes salir vivo, ¿no? O sea, puedes salir bien. Y de hecho lo sale bien, ¿sabes? Pero claro, hay un poco de tal, en plan, ¿por qué todos mis amigos están desaparecidos? Todos mis compañeros. A ti no te interesa eso, no te preocupes, ¿sabes? Y al no hacerle caso está diciéndonos el tío, oye, mira, tío, que soy bueno, mira, te estoy llevando de este sitio. ¿Te acuerdas de ella? A lo mejor ella ahora te quiere si haces esto. Hostia. Hostia. Qué puto miedo. ¡Ah!
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this. To reach out to her. If you can truly place your faith in another, then pick up the phone.
Wow.
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
What the?
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
What the fuck?
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
What the fuck? ¿Cómo que la muerte? Pulse V. No. ¿V?
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence.
¿Qué coño? ¿Soy yo ahora en Stanley?
Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly
Claro,
what he's told
está
to
hablando de
do.
mí ahora mismo.
Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life.
Por favor, no quiero pulsar esa tecla. No quiero pulsar esa tecla.
But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures.
Wow.
From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him.
Joder. No quiero... para la TV. Sí.
And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly.
No quiero pulsar el botón.
So he went further. He imagined that he came to 2 open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold.
¿Qué coño está pasando? Vale.
As he wandered through the he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable.
¿Qué? ¿Qué?
It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time. But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets. The more he forgets which life is the real one.
What the fuck? ¿Qué es este juego?
And I'm trying to tell him this. That in this world he can never be anything but an observer. That as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
No lo estoy pulsando. No le voy a pulsar. No le voy a pulsar. No le voy a pulsar. El tiempo ha cambiado. No voy a pulsarlo, no voy a pulsarlo, voy a estar aquí esperando. Yo no lo pulso, aquí me quedo, Yikes, hermano. ¿Qué coño, tío? Qué parra de juego, macho. Qué parra. A ver, obviamente no hay que pulsar el botón, pero a la vez obviamente hay que pulsarlo, si no, no va a ocurrir nada. Y ya ha pasado 1 minuto desde que la pregunta ha dicho. A lo mejor yo que sé, a lo mejor si esperas 10 minutos, 7 minutos, 20 minutos, seguro que pasa algo, pero me temo que no tengo tiempo para eso, así que voy a pulsarlo en 3, 2, 1.
You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself?
No quiero pulsar Z. No quiero pulsar Z.
I suppose I can't. Not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again.
What?
And Stanley pushed a button.
What?
And I
What the fuck es este juego, tío? Hostia, esto voy a jugarlo más. No ahora. ¿Cuánto llevo de vídeo? 40 minutos. No voy a jugarlo más ahora mismo. Pero hostia puta, tío. Hostia puta. Pulsa la puerta 435 veces. Juegas Stanley Emparrao un martes entero. ¿Qué? Completa la Stanley Emparrao en menos de 4 minutos 22 segundos. No incluye tiempos de carga. No puedes saltar. No te puedes saltar, en serio. Lo hemos desactivado. Pues he saltado. Sal fuera. No juegues en Stanley Emparrao durante 5 años. Este juego está jugando conmigo, tío. Este juego está jugando conmigo, Dios mío. Pues nada. Si te ha gustado, hago más de esto. No, qué coño, voy a jugar más de todos modos, que me importa una mierda tu opinión. Hasta luego.